So as you saw from the email, my name is Pam. Shuey can be a little bit hard to figure out when you just read it. My mom liked to joke when I was a kid that she wished she had triplets so she could name them Huey, Louie, and Dewey Shuey. So that one always sticks. Before we begin, I'm going to ask you to please turn off your microphones once we get going, simply just to keep crosstalk and chatter down. We will also be recording today's session, so I wanted to make sure that that was okay. If at all you would like to turn off your camera, please feel free, because of course, you never know how far-reaching we might be with these Adventures broadcasts. We'll see how many people ultimately see them, but until then, you may not want to be on the screen, so that's your choice as well. I have done the presentation once before, and it took about an hour, so hopefully I'll do the same thing again. And we will have time at the end for some questions and answers, of course. If you were looking at one or other of the tours, I'm going to start with about 20 minutes of overview that affects both of them. Then I'll jump in and do the rail tour a little more in depth. Then I'll do the hiking tour a little more in depth. So if you would choose to not attend one of them, or you know the hiking tour is simply not for you, you can have a little break, get a cup of coffee, use the bathroom, all those good things. So the inaugural Adventures Abroad cast. This came about because we would meet on Friday afternoons as tour leaders. You were saying everybody just wants to get out, wants to go somewhere. So we started to take each other on tours with ourselves. Everybody's going to have a first time leading a tour. So now there's been this rich little recording of information from tour leaders, current, past, present, questions, all the rest, for us to go through. And then we thought, well, wouldn't this be fun to turn around and share with you guys? So that's how that happened. We did the very first Adventures Abroad cast last week, and I'll do a repeat for it because, excitingly, there was lots of interest for it. Let me get to sharing my screen for you, and that'll make things a little bit better. And just to check with Justin, is that presenting properly, or did I skip a step?
Nope, everything looks good to me.
Excellent. So welcome to Adventures Abroad in Switzerland. If you did want to have a look at those, you can, absolutely. SW1 was the trip code. I'll let you see it one more time. For the rail tour, and XSW if you wanted to do it by foot, a little more by foot. Some of the highlights of this tour, which I've been very lucky to lead for probably 4 or 5 times in the last 4 or 5 years. I would say the majesty of the Alps, of course. The mountains are absolutely spectacular. The Jungfraujoch and the Matterhorn, those two experiences stand out very clearly too, because they're pretty interesting examples of human engineering. Of course, the spring flowers, if you came along for the Swiss hiking tour in probably June. The quaint towns of Solothurn, Fribourg, Gruyeres, Appenzell, St Gallen. So all these little places where time is just frozen in their old towns, yet life continues and hustle and bustle in the new parts of the city, and the juxtaposition is always really a treat. And of course, there are random moments of extreme Swissness. I will pull one of those out, a little video I caught along the way. Some of the photos I included here, if you can see my cursor move. This blue lady is the angel that will greet you when you arrive in the Zurich train station. That's a great meeting point. A lot of people meet under the angel. The archway next door is from the Chateau Chillon, the Niagara Falls of Switzerland. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. The Swiss flag is flying on the back of one of the ferries that we use to commute in Lucerne. And then there you go. There's some Swiss Alps with a little chapel in it. That's in the town of Grindelwald, where we stay for the Swiss hiking tour. Packing and orientation. I love in our pre-departure information, this is one of the first packages that you'll get if you book a trip with us, is there are 2 kinds of people on this tour. Those who pack light and those who really wish they did, because the trains really do affect how we move about. Bringing layers is important because of all kinds of weather in the spring and fall. However, bring light layers. You want to be able to lift things over your head up into the storage bins. Lots of places to find under seats and baggage sections that are there for us, but if 18 of us are getting onto a train, it does fill up pretty fast. So that's always a big challenge. Sensible shoes are going to do you good on both tours, of course, because the cobblestone streets in places make things a little bit wobbly just on the walking tours. And then the hiking tour, we do put in quite a few steps on a couple days. Punctuality is really important.
Excuse me, Pam. We are not seeing your presentation.
Oh, okay. Was it just Justin that was seeing it?
I guess everybody not seeing it.
Okay, let me back up and see if we can do. thanks for letting me know that. That's kind of important, isn't it? Okay, now
Okay, now we seeing it.
Okay,
His
good.
eyes seeing it. Yeah,
Good. Thank you, Raymond.
no problem.
Yes, don't we all wish we had an IT department upstairs or down in the basement they could call on every time something like that happens. There you go. Let me back up for your photographs there. The blue lady is the angel you can meet at Zurich train station. Chateau Chillon, the window with the flowers, one of the ferries that we'll use to commute, and then Grindelwald up in the mountains. It's a beautiful time once we get up there. Packing, as I mentioned, most of the way through, the punctuality being so important because things have great Swiss efficiency. We learned that when the train is leaving at 12:32, it's not leaving at 12:33 or 12:31. It's going to be very punctual, and so should we. Really, we don't have trouble because it's easy to plan around, but yeah, just an important thing to keep in mind. Refillable water bottles are great. They've so figured this out in Switzerland. All of the Swiss Alps have been tapped, and most little towns just have fountains. And there's little spigots that come out. You just reach in and you get fresh, cold, clear Alpen water. And we don't leave behind pounds and pounds of plastic bottles, which is really pretty awesome. European outlets, a little reminder, they're the round ping, the 2 round pins. 220 volt, most of your electronics are going to handle that with no trouble, but you want to just make sure you're going to be able to get into the wall. Language and customs that concern us. This is kind of fun. The Swiss are a little bit quirky in one way that I'll mention in a sec, but first you always start off with Grüezi. Grüezi is their hello. It varies a tiny bit. I still can't pronounce it properly in Bern, but the rest of the country will recognize what I'm saying. Trains are a very common space, and so respect for others is tantamount. We keep our voices low. I won't get up and greet you as a group and tell you information and point things out the window. I'll probably come up and tap you on the shoulder and say 10-minute warning, and we'll pass it along and move. You know, walking through the car is fine, but there won't be any grand moments of announcements. With that, it's a really nice place to relax, though. So if you have books or knitting or anything you like to take to kill some time on the airplane, really great to have it there on the train as well. One note that I don't think I put in here in print, if you're a photographer, a reminder that a lot of the time you're going to be taking pictures through the glass on the trains, and it's a little bit hard to get around that. So you want to be able to have a filter or something to lose reflection. And although English is really widely spoken, you're not really going to have language trouble in too many places. The 4 official languages in the country will probably be heard all the way around. I have my map on the wall here because I don't really have a very good dedicated Zoom space. I haven't curated one yet. So you can just see, just because of this, where it lies, basically up here you're speaking mostly Swiss German because of the border with Germany, Swiss French, Swiss Italian, and then the Latin, the Romanche over here in this corner. There's a place I like to take you for lunch where the menu again stops making sense even at the last day because it's a whole new language. The please begin with hello that I put in at the top, that is the quirk of the Swiss. It's really normal for us to walk up to something and say, walk into a shop and just say, hey, can I get a large coffee? And we'd include please, because of course we're being polite. But to the Swiss, that was the worst thing I ever could have done. You walk in and you say, hello, could I please have a large coffee? But you just have to acknowledge the human being that you're talking to. If you just rush up and jump into something, especially on train platforms when you're trying to get information, they will test you. They will test your patience and wait for you to say hello. I've had it happen when I was trying to get everybody on the Glacier Express. So I learned my lesson, let's put it that way. The currency of the Swiss, they're so pretty with all the colors. This is a brand new series. I've actually only seen the 10 and the 20 in person, and the 1,000 was only released just in the last few months. It's an extremely stable currency too. So if anybody is a collector and you could get your mitts on a brand new 1,000 franc note, that could be a really cool collector's piece. Because they take their money a little bit differently than we do. They have not had politicians on there in a very, very long time. The last series featured artists, prominent Swiss artists, and then their art was on the back. This time, they are trying to represent Switzerland and all of its people. So the idea of the hands and each position that you see on the bills reflects a different idea. The globe that you see there, that actually spins throughout the money. So you see the earth in a 24-hour chunk. And then on the back, you can also see Swiss items And there's places. I haven't been able to see those yet. So that's something that I will be looking forward to on the next tour. There's also 7 coins. So get ready to have a heavy wallet. You can see they go as little as the teeny 5 centimes, 5, 10, 20, and 50. And then the bigger coins are 1, 2, and 5 francs. So right now, 1 Swiss franc costs about $1.30 Canadian and about $1.10 US. So you can put that in perspective. It is not an inexpensive tour to buy your wine with dinner or your lunches, that kind of idea. But again, it's one of the most stable currencies in the world. It doesn't change a whole lot if you end up with overages or anything like that. Communications on the tour are actually really easy to do. After hitting the ATM at the airport, you can grab a SIM card. There's a couple shops right there. When you come out of the airport, you do an overpass and you're basically, essentially, in a mall that's above the main train station there. So everything is available. If on the plane you realize you forgot your hairspray or toothbrush or something like that, pharmacies, pretty much anything you've forgotten, you should be able to get. And then if you are a smartphone user and you do pick up a SIM card, the SBB app, the Swiss Bundesbahnen, the train of the Swiss people, they have an app that'll help you find your train, and it's really great. You can also find floor plans to help you find yourself out of the train stations. And this is a picture of what it looks like when you're dealing with the app. What I would look for the group is here on the left, you can see the straight lines, one with no dots in the middle. That means we're going to take 1 train. That's why it's 56 minutes. And the same distance between Zurich and Bern is covered in 1 hour, 18 minutes on this one, because you're going to have to change trains twice. So if we have all our bags, I'm always aiming for the straight shot. You can always see that one will be a little bit shorter or longer than the others. Make your plans that way. And then with the group, if it's concerning, this tells us we travel in 2nd class. Don't worry, there's nothing wrong with 2nd class. We travel in the 2nd class cars, and you can tell here this afternoon, it's going to be busy because they've got the 2 people. It could be 3 people, and then they could be red, which tells you that it's going to be really, really busy. And then I might choose a different train, but basically I'm going to try and make it as least stressful and comfortable for us the whole way around. Because that's basically what my role is to be your mama bear while I'm out there on the road, just trying to make things go smoothly for you. If you haven't traveled with us before, you know I'm also going to feed you twice a day and get you from A to B. Take care of all the headaches of your transportation. You'll see that here. We mainly do use trains to get around on both tours. We have added a coach to 2 spots on the rail tour, and that gives us great freedom to do some extra sightseeing around Montreux and St Gallen, and just do it at a little bit more of a relaxed pace. When we didn't have that coach, we could do as many as 42 trains in the 2 weeks. So that does get stressful and a little bit tiring. Both of the tours feature the chance to get out on the lake for a boat cruise, and both feature the use of, maybe and possibly, funiculars, cable cars, or gondolas, and even there's one chairlift on the hiking tour. We may take buses and trams to get around in the cities. It's very fluid, easy, and Swissly efficient. Which way will the train go? That is an extremely popular question because a lot of people really don't like to sit backwards. That's fair. If we're ever in a pickle, I can switch, I can ride backwards. But 9 times out of 10, we're not going to be in a pickle. Once the train starts moving, you stand up, you turn around, sit down the other way. We're gold. You can move within the trains. It's really not that hard. There's a portion here where I'm going to talk about how I'm a little border collie running around nipping you at the heels, just trying to get you on the train. But you can see it's a nice, comfortable setting. Everybody's facing the camera for the most part, I believe. You can see behind me the door, so you can walk from train car to train car. If you just need a little bit of time away from the group, you can do that. We can all sit together. Sometimes we have reserved trains. Sometimes we're hustling. It's kind of part of the whole fun, right? It is an adventure abroad, after all. Rail passes and trains. We do use the Swiss rail pass, which is gold. It comes in a little ticket pouch like this. I'll have you carry your own. Not every tour leader will do that, but I figure if I lose them all, and that's a nightmare. If you lose your own, we can work around that. They are valid for 15 days. So if you consider coming early or arriving late, we can try to arrange to get those into your hands if it's early so that you can use it to get around the transport in Zurich. You can go to the museums, you can take the boats, you can do tons of things with the Swiss Rail Pass. Even if it's not just heavily discounted, it will generally be free. Lucerne as well has plenty of sites. So if you're either of the tours, if you wanted to spend some extra days after, then you're more comfortable with the trains and you have this rail pass that'll help you move about. The bags are the biggest challenge. As I mentioned, sometimes I'm just behind you yelling, just get on the train. Because of course you've got the train car with 2 doors. There's now 2 more train cars on either side, and they've got doors. So if we've got 4, we divide, we conquer. We'll meet inside, and then we'll meet back on the platform all together. Once I did lose people. They got stuck in a crowd, but luckily enough, it only took 20 minutes to fix it. 20 very long, heart-stressing minutes, but it worked. Food on the tour. This is a little bit curious going forward because we don't quite know what breakfast buffets will look like in a post-COVID world. Typically, they were served at the hotel as buffets featuring lots of bread, cheese, cold cuts, muesli, yogurt, eggs, fruit, cold veg, lots of variety. On this tour, you will not have trouble if you're lactose intolerant, if you worry about celiacs or vegetarianism. All of that is easily handled. Lunch is often grab and go, simply because we have the trains, and the trains are perfect for that. Little tables, put your stuff down on. Train stations have really great grab and go options, including, if you'd like, grab some wine or beer. It's quite acceptable there, and maybe have a nap the rest of the afternoon as we go along. There's a couple times that we will buy lunch instead of dinner, simply because the timing works better, giving you some free nights in the more multicultural towns so that you can have a look around. I tend to do that in Grindelwald on the hiking tour, and then in Interlaken on the rail tour. Spätzle or Rosti on the side of Zurcher. I always try to pronounce it really quietly because I never can say it right. That's the signature meal of Zurich. I will feed you that. Raclette, fondue. Here's a picture of some meringue for dessert. It's like pavlova from Australia or New Zealand. It's a pretty tasty one. The Zurcher Geschnelzes up there in the right-hand side. Geschnelzes. We'll read it off the menu. And Rosti, a full meal here. Basically, it's hash browns, but they cover it with cheese and some veg, maybe some meat or fried egg. It's really a tasty all-in-one meal. And nguetta, you can see there in the print. That's how you say bon appetit or bon provecho, any of those, anytime you're going to sit down and start a meal. Nguetta. It's a nice, polite way to greet someone in a restaurant. Drinks. On tour, you are responsible for buying most of your drinks with meals. We will feed you breakfast and dinner. Drinks and lunch will be on your own. All of this is pointed out in the information that you get ahead, and a lot of you already know that. But just so you know, wine in Switzerland is sold by the centiliter. So, or a deciliter is probably a better way to order it. So you get a 10 centi or a deci pour, which is a little bit small. For most North Americans, you're going to get a 2 deci pour. That's about a 6 ounce usual bottle of, or glass of wine in a restaurant. Could run you anywhere from 14 US to 17 Canadian. And if you're having a 3-course meal and you might have 2 glasses of wine, suddenly that gets a little bit expensive. Beer drinkers, you're good. You'll have lots of choice. I would say price is very typical to North America when you're dining or at a pub for a pint of beer, a little on the steeper end, but not that bad at all. And as I mentioned, it may seem odd to see people sit down on a train with a drink in their hands, but totally acceptable in Switzerland. Personal-sized wine and cold beer are available in the shops. And people do that on the train, have a really nice time. And again, the water is available everywhere. Remember your refillable bottle and you'll be very, very happy. I like to joke that the hotels like the Swiss are pragmatic. It's all simple. It's great. Everything you need efficiently and cleanly and in a realistic amount of space. It's not teeny. It's not Japan or anything like that, but it's nothing too fancy. Elevators aren't always guaranteed, and porters are definitely not a thing. They kind of think, well, why would you leave home with more than you could carry yourself? That's a little crazy. Kettles are common, fridges a tiny bit less so, and air conditioning a little bit more so. They kind of expect you just to open up the window and get the fresh mountain air in kind of idea. Personal duvets, though, if you're a couple and you're getting into bed, you each have your own sort of single duvet. So if you have a stealer on one side, they're not going to succeed that night, or well, they'd be very talented if they do. Most of our hotels are within walking distance of the train stations. In Zermatt and St Moritz, we do get our bags picked up because we have a bit longer distance to walk. Some people in Zermatt do feel the altitude as well. That's one of the challenges on the tour. Our usual St Moritz hotel does have a spa trade with a beautiful place next door. You don't need to pack your bathing suit, though this is Europe after all. You just have to pack your comfort zone or expand it a little bit. So to jump into the Swiss Rail Tour here, this is to let those that know they're only interested in the hiking tour know that you have about 15 to 20 minutes before I'm going to come and talk about that portion. So if you would like to take a break, use the bathroom or anything, you have a moment. So day one, your arrival in Zurich. I guess it's fair to say this would also count for the Swiss tour as well. The airport's very easy to negotiate. Domestic and international arrival halls lead you to where you can catch a taxi on the main drag. Very expensive and not that efficient. Traffic can be a drag. Or you take the walk over into the train station with your SBB app, and for under $10, you buy yourself a train ticket and you get yourself into the main part of the city. As I mentioned, everything like that is at the airport. And if I didn't meet you at the airport, which is part of the transfer, I'll see you at the hotel for the orientation meeting that night. I'll know if you're coming in because I'm generally there a day earlier. Most tour leaders can be. We'll have your Swiss Rail passes waiting for you if you're coming in at 10 a.m. because I know your room's not going to be ready till 2. You'll be dead tired from the flight. So at least have something to entertain you. You can go out for the day. I do need to activate them for that day because I generally use them that night to take you out for dinner. There you can use all the museum entries. You could go out on the boat, but we will have our orientation meeting and then go out for our first dinner and get to know everybody. Pardon me. So if you can follow my cursor, you'll see along the map here that I stole from Google Maps. We start off here in Zurich. Then we will travel to Bern, all in one day and see both cities. The next day I'll stop in Solothurn with you, and we'll ultimately end up in Montreux for the night. We'll stay sometime there so that we can visit Lausanne and Gruyeres and have our own little tour of Montreux, traveling to Interlaken with a stop in Fribourg. That's just a bit of a walking tour onto our night here. This will be your first free night for dinner. Take yourself out. And then we have some adventures, including our time up on the Jungfraujoch in the mountains, and then our day trip to Lucerne. Back down up for traveling. 3 trains to take us to Zermatt. That's a bit of a long day. To play at the Matterhorn. Then we get on the Glacier Express over to St Moritz. Day trip there over to Zuoz over in the east side of things. And then the coach will take us for our final leg up through Liechtenstein for lunch in Vaduz and on to St Gallen. Final morning, we'll have our little day trip up to Appenzell and then back to Zurich for dinner that night. So 14 days. Here's how it looks. Activity level 2. I would say that's actually pretty perfect because walking tours are all fine. Lausanne has a little bit of height, but it's really just about getting on and off the train swiftly, efficiently, and with all of our bags and hopefully fingernails intact. Our day on the Jungfrau can present altitude issues. As I mentioned, Zermatt sits just over 5,000 feet. So if you get a little heady when you walk too fast in Denver, there's Zermatt for you. But physically, it's just your bags and the train, really. Mostly it's a very calm walking tour scenario. Day 2, this is where we see how we do on the trains because we're going to check out, store our bags, be met with a local guide, and spend the morning wandering Zurich, ending up generally at the Marc Chagall stained glass windows of the Fraumünster Cathedral. If my guide Ari is with us, he's delightful. I have to give him at least 15 to 20 minutes because he can just go forever on it. And it's lovely. Then we zip back to the hotel, grab bags and our lunch, get on the train to Bern, hit the ground running there. We'll drop our things at the hotel, have a 2-hour walking tour there. And then when you're dead tired and wanting to give up your seat at dinner, I'll convince you to come out for the best mushroom spätzle I've ever had. It will change your life, I guarantee. There's a little picture on the left-hand side. There's Zurich, it begins with an L. It's going to come to me. The Linden River that flows out here into the Zurich Sea, which is lovely to cruise around. Here on the right, you see downtown Bern, or a very good example of the old quarter. Features all sorts of beautiful colored fountains. There's Zeitglog, a very famous clock in the back there, and then the arched shopping arcades for all season shopping. That's the good thing about the capital in Bern. From there on day 3, we'll leave to stop in Solothurn. This is a beautiful little old town. Solothurn was the 11th canton to join the Federation. So its roots are very, very deep. It's an old walled city. So we see a little bit of the old wall, explore the St. Ursus Cathedral, another highlight. It is one of my favorite ceilings in a cathedral in the world. And then I'll give you a little bit of free time. We have our lunch and on to Montreux. That way we can get our things to the hotel and get down to the boardwalk. Meet Mr. Freddie Mercury. He, the lead singer of Queen, has his own statue down there. They recorded in the 70s in Switzerland, and he stayed on, built a studio, and left a bit of a legacy. So he's a bit of a star, and we'll make our way down to Chillon Castle. Some pictures from that day. You can see St. Ursus Cathedral there on the left with the gate a little in the back there to show just how compact the space was too. Really spectacular. And this is the Chateau Chillon, Chillon Castle, down on Lake Geneva. That's not my picture, I got to admit. I'm sure there's filters. I've never seen it look quite so perfect, but it is the most photographed spot in Switzerland, according to Tourism Switzerland. So that's a fun thing to get on in our day there. Day 4, we'll travel to Lausanne and do a tour of Gruyeres. This we will do by train in the morning, meet our guide, spend a couple of hours walking through Lausanne, Place de Palude, and the Saturday market. With the addition of the bus on this day, we actually get to move a little quicker and include the Olympic Museum and its garden because the International Olympic Committee is headquartered not very far from Lausanne. So there you are. Then we drive to the town of Gruyere. Which came first, the cheese or the town? I'm sure there's a long legend there, and I'm going to have to learn it now. We will learn a bit about cheese in town today. There's a museum that we visit, an early fondue dinner, and I should get you back just in time to have a little sunset walk on the boardwalk again, because Montreux is lovely and there's a great ice cream shop. We should get back to Montreux, as I said, just in time for you to have a peek at that. Here on the left in the photographs, you can see at the Olympic Museum, that's the high jump world record or Olympic record. And you walk under that and are quite humbled to see what somebody can Fosbury flop over. On the right-hand side, the mountain town of Gruyere. The castle is actually behind me. What I wanted to show you in this one is here at the forefront. This is one of the fountains that I'm talking about. You can just stand on the side, lean over with your bottle, and these little spigots here are spewing beautiful Alpine clean water. And it's really quite wonderful. And the brown building back there, it's a chocolaterie. Absolutely everywhere you will find chocolate. The Swiss consume some of the most in the world. They're slacking though. In 2020, that was the first year the Swiss national consumption fell below 10 kilograms per person, 9.9 kilos per person, or 22 pounds in a year. You know, when in Rome, in this case. Day 5, we will travel from Montreux to Fribourg for a walking tour. This always happens on a Sunday, which is really nice. It's a little bit slower because it's a university town, so the kids aren't up yet, and we can have a little bit of a walk through the medieval town. Again, with the weekend, there's a market that we can take part in for some extra color, and we finish at the town's covered bridge. There's a nice little place I found for lunch. I like to do that because it's kind of lazy for a Sunday, and then we hop on the train back to Interlaken, where we will be for the next few nights. This is a real tourist resort town. People come to ski on the nearby mountains. Lake Thun and Lake Brience's beautiful. You can do lots of lake things like houses, vacationing, that kind of thing. Paragliders land in the main square. And Bollywood films. For the longest time, Pakistan and Kashmir, all those areas have been unstable politically and very dangerous to film in. For a decade or more, they've been using the mountains around Interlaken to film Bollywood movies. So you find groups of tourists that are looking for Ashwari Rai or with the meadow where they filmed that picnic, and then they're going to have their picnic, and it's really quite adorable. But it is really a tourist town, as I mentioned. On the walk home, you can shop for $30,000 watches, Indian food, Irish pub. There's even a Hooters if you just need something totally different. But that's a little chance to have a crazy day for you on your own. There's the covered bridge in Fribourg. Unfortunately, that must be from the fall tour. I don't have the hanging baskets. There's always beautiful flowers throughout the summer months. But this is it's a great little corner in that town. Day 6, this is our Jungfraujoch Adventure. This is really fun. Today we see a great feat of human engineering. We travel to the Jungfraujoch. To put this in perspective, Jungfrau is the mountain, and Joch is for yoke, like an oxen, or the ridge. And we're up on the ridge of the mountain. So on the Jungfraujoch, we will be exploring what began as an old weather station. We take the train, a Cogwrail train up from Grindelwald to Kleine Scheidegg. There is where they would have filmed the Eiger Sanction with Clint Eastwood, if you remember that from way back, because you're staring at the face of the Eiger, the monk, and the Jungfrau, the three mountains. That's the ogre, the monk, and the young woman. And so the monk keeps the purity of the young woman from the ogre, protects her. And that's the legend of those hills. We're going to kind of bore right through them with our train up to this. I just want to give you, I'll talk about it a little bit more, but I wanted to have the visual so you could see. Where we arrive when we come in by train is in this wooden area. There's the train station, restaurants, lost and found, first aid, shopping, souvenirs, and meeting spaces. When we begin our tour, we'll walk through the glass wall here, over to where the weather station was begun. Lots of things to see in there. There's an ice palace you'll see a photo of in a second, a Disney-esque wall of things that you stand and watch it all go by, views from the mountain, views of the mountain. It's really quite cool. Then we zip up in an elevator, whip right up here to what is called the Sphinx. This is the Sphinx on the left. You can see there's some people out on the platform. They're looking back down on the town of Interlaken and kind of figuring out where the lake and the mountains are. If you were to look the other way over the backside of the Sphinx here, you can make out the Lech Glacier. That is the longest mainland Europe flowing glacier. There's one longer in Iceland, but it's not on the mainland, so there's the title, right? So then we come zipping back down from the Sphinx all the way around and end up back at the train station. We really do hope for good weather. We could spend 4 or 5 hours up there on a nice day with the sunshine. You can sit out there and have a drink. Heck, you can go tobogganing if you're up for it. You can spend as much or as little time up there as you'd like. The only concern, it's over 12,000 feet. So if you do have issues with altitude, I do know where I can score an emergency can of oxygen up there. So that is at least something to have. This is another shot of the ice palace here on the right-hand side that we walk past. All sorts of cute little carvings and things like that. And then this is Kleine Scheidegg. This is where we change trains. You see the mountains. There's the ogre, Eiger, monk, and the Jungfrau, and the train that goes all the way through it. It really is quite a very, very cool day. Day 7, our last night in Lucerne, we wake up to go travel, or our last night in Interlaken, I'm sorry, we get up to travel to Lucerne for the day. And it's a beautiful one. We pass 5 mountain lakes, beautiful colors, nice train walls with more glass than anything. The picture that I showed you at the start is from the Lucerne day, so you have a little bit more viewing space. We're met on arrival for a walking tour of town. I find guides rarely have time to squeeze in the Lion Monument. I think it's really important, so I will try and take you there, and then we should be able to break for lunch, and you have a free afternoon. There's lots to do. A transportation museum, you can go for a lake cruise. There's the Rosengart with Picassos and Cleese and all sorts of wonderful art. And then on the way home, there's a lovely riverside spot at one of the train stations that we get to first. We have our quick dinner there, and then you can walk or train home for a long but really lovely day. On the left there in the photography is the Lion Monument. Mark Twain calls it the most mournful piece of stone you will ever see. It really is. It stops you in the first time you see it. It's really beautiful, and it's setting in the whole thing. And the Kappelbrücke there on the right-hand side with its flowering baskets hanging there. And you can see the watermark because I had to steal a stock photo. I've never gotten a really, really great photo of that. But that's right in the main part of Lucerne as well. And we'll definitely be spending a lot of time going over that. Day 8, we move on from Interlaken to Zermatt. 3 train rides for us to start the day. It's busy. Weather also affects us on this day too, because it'll show us whether we get to see the Matterhorn the minute we leave the train station, because it's just up over your right-hand shoulder as we do. Hopefully that's there. If it's a nice day and tomorrow is not meant to be, we're going to go up the Gornergrat. If tomorrow is meant to be nice, we're just going to have a nice day in Zermatt. I'll show you the Hinterdorfstrasse, the really old stretch of wooden homes from the 15 and 1600s. It's stunning. And then the Climbers Cemetery, related to those that tried the Matterhorn, and the Matterhorn Museum. It's only open in the afternoon, so that's why I like to squeeze that out in the afternoon. And then on day 9, we can spend all day looking for the Matterhorn if the weather is like this. I always make sure you go up there with a Toblerone bar in your hand, because that mountain on the Toblerone and the shape of the Toblerone, that's inspired by the Matterhorn. So there you go. That one year, that was the photograph of the Matterhorn that we got. Normally, it's a little bit better because we take the Mountain Rack Railway right up to the top. Basically, it's a ski resort. If you watched The Night Manager with Hugh Laurie, one of the places that he managed was up there. And so we'll go by all of these different little hotels, resorts along the mountain, up to the top to see the Montreux Glacier, the weather station that's up there. There's a little chapel. And then in the distance, a picture-perfect view of the Matterhorn. From there, how we get down, well, that depends kind of what time of year it is and what you're up for. You can just go up and go right back down on the train if you'd like. I like to get off on the first stop down because if it's fall, the Riffelsee, or Lake Riffel, is melted and we can get the spectacular photo of the Matterhorn reflected in it. In the spring tours, you will not get that because it'll still be frozen, but there's different hikes that are available at different altitudes on both days. So you can do little walks on the mountain or, as I said, just take the train down and go shop for the afternoon, or go up the other side at the Schwartzee where you can be right at the foot of the Matterhorn. There's lots of views to be seen everywhere today, everywhere. We're just going to be exploring the mountains, and hopefully we will be getting that photo of the Matterhorn, and maybe your photographer will be a tiny bit better and not put you over top of the whole reflection. That's okay. I can go back and get another one. These little gnomes sit in a window in a little house that's just at the foot of the Matterhorn, sort of right behind where my head is in that photograph. You can hike, and then suddenly there's this house, and the couple that live there have a restaurant, and there's beautiful cake and coffee and fresh cream, and it's really quite lovely. Hopefully we'll be able to experience something like that. Day 10, this is all about sitting still and watching the world go by. We get onto the Glacier Express. They call it the slowest express train in the world. And it does take all day, and it's really quite lovely. Again, we're praying for good weather, though. We will leave the hotel in time for us to get to the train station, drop everything. I'll watch it while you run and grab lunch from one of the shops around the train station. Simply because you can treat yourself to a meal on the train. They do kind of fancy dining. But it's train fancy dining. It's prepared 6 cars down earlier. I just don't think it's the greatest food for what they charge. So have a lazy lunch on board, and I'll take you out for a lovely dinner in Zermatt instead. The onboard announcement system is very simple. You'll get a little visual reminder, a little bing bong to put your earbuds in. They do give you a pair. I'll show you the picture here. You can see there's some sitting on the table there, and as well a table for lunch, for cards, for whatever, or for your afternoon nap after that wine with your lunch. It's a lovely day, but you can bring earbuds or favorites of your own if you have them, or over-ear ones if you need that with a hearing aid or anything like that. Takes us into St Moritz kind of just in time to get to the whole hotel. We can stretch our legs a little bit if we continue to use the hotel we always had pre-COVID. It's nice near a little park and a lake. Stretch our legs and then go for dinner. Because on day 11, we need to explore St Moritz. We have a coach that takes us to do our touring of the city. Outside of the city, we leave along the road that is the Cresta Run. St Moritz is not just the birth of winter tourism in Switzerland and the world, but it's where tobogganing literally began. And when you're watching the Olympics and you see them do these banks and curves, now as we're driving on the road, you can actually see these banks and curves that are going to be built with snow and ice in the winter. Kind of puts it in perspective, and it's really spectacular the way it flows actually from the top of St Moritz to nearby Celerina. It's actually a little suburb a little ways away. It's quite a distance that it covers. Free time in the afternoon after we explore in Zuoz and Zernez. So you can get back to that if you wish. And Zuoz and Zernez are really, really cool because they're just slightly different from everything else because we are getting into the Romanche area. So the languages change, the house designs change. Zuoz was a very big political center in the past. Now it's really just a little tourist place around the ski resorts and beautiful photography opportunities. This is a really great day. The Swiss National Park Museum that we visit in Zernez, it's actually geared towards kids, but I find grown-ups can really have some fun. Sagantini Museum awaits you. Behind the Cresta Rider there, that's the start of the tobogganing race, is the Kolm Hotel. You can just make that out in the distance. That was the home of Switzerland's first electric light bulb. They had to change it every 76 minutes. Not as efficient as the Swiss would like, so they fixed it. Day 12, this is our day leaving St Moritz to head to the Principality of Liechtenstein. Not much really notices until I point out that one side of the bridge had the Swiss flag on it, and this one now has the Liechtenstein flag. Your money stays the same. Language stays the same. As I do mention, it is a gravel Dramamine day if the twisty turvies, because we get out of St Moritz and go over a mountain pass. It's beautiful. And if you're a motorcyclist, you will be so envious of those going by you. In the capital city of Vaduz, we'll visit the Tourist Information Center so I can get your passport stamped if you would like. And then we head to the National Museum. There's lots of free time for lunch, sitting in the square, having a beer, climbing up to the castle. Vineyards give you nice photography opportunities. And there's also a postal museum because the Principality has its own stamps. That's kind of an important one for collectors. And we should be able to get into St. Gallen in the afternoon in time to knock out some of the touring. Just gives us more time tomorrow to explore the quaint little town of Appenzell. But this is the highlight of St. Gallen, or it is for me. This is called the Abbey Library. It's a collection of printed material that goes back eons. There's a great legend about how it was saved by a Romanian nun when the bad guys were coming. We'll get to that one. There's a mummy there. You have to put little slipper booties on, and it's all climate controlled. Outside of the front door is a sign that says Apothecary for the Soul, or Pharmacy of the Soul. So if you are a reader at all, this is a delightful hour to spend in the time of St. Gallen. So if we hadn't done it the afternoon before, we do that in the morning, then catch the train into the mountains of Appenzell. We'll explore a little bit together so I can show you the little old quarter with its painted buildings. Look at the pictures of this. This was from the time when most people didn't read. So if you were a pharmacy, you had the different herbs and everything you made your medicine from printed on the outside of your building so people would know. Or whatever, if you were from one of the guilds, that kind of thing. It was everything, that the art that was on your building showed people what you did. And a lot of that has been retained, so it's wonderful. This, again, a folk museum, art museum, patio square, whatever floats your boat. We'll head down in the afternoon, take the train back to Zurich for our final dinner. Whoops, going the wrong way. Sorry about that. Departures are really, really easy because now you got the trains figured out. I've probably already pointed out which tracks you're going to need to be on tomorrow on one of the days in the last few. Your Swiss Rail Pass will be valid for the trip, which can be as short as 9 minutes. I'll help you pick the right train. So we'll get you out of there nicely, efficiently. Taxi's not your best option unless you leave under darkness. And the Zurich airport is wonderfully efficient. As I mentioned, a lot of times you do drop your bags and actually have checked in before you even enter the actual property of the airport. There's a couple little kiosks and everything just off to the side as you come in. So this takes us to my random choir on the gondola at Pontresina. Pontresina, that might have to be a new word. This was the random bit of Swissness that I mentioned. This is a little palate cleanser between tours. And we literally stumbled upon this, taking a cable car down outside of St Moritz, and a choir. So spectacular. Okay, so there you are. If the Swiss hiking tour is not for you, you've got about 15 minutes to have a little break and use the bathroom, get a drink or anything like that, and come back. Because this is XSW. We go pretty much Zurich to Lucerne. Our last night is spent in Lucerne, and you get yourself to Zurich to the airport on your own. We travel this time in a clockwise direction of the country, starting in Zurich as usual. We head down to St Moritz our first day and do our exploration there. The Glacier Express in the opposite direction to Zermatt, exploring around the Matterhorn and all around. We head up to Grindelwald, just above Interlaken. Interlaken was Interlaken, between the two lakes here. So we go one more train up into the mountains to stay in Grindelwald. That's because we base our trip to the Jungfraujoch from there, and then we also do a hike up above Grindelwald there, so it's just easier. And then our last few nights are spent in Lucerne, where we will hike around the Rigi area here on the lake, and then our final day is spent in the capital of Bern, final dinner, and then you head off on your own to Zurich. This one is 13 days, 1 day less, but you get your steps in, as we see. We begin here on day 2. Because I've already done the arrivals. If you missed it, it is recorded in perpetuity, and you can get back to that one. But day 2, Zurich city tour, like before, we will be met in the morning at the hotel. Our guide will take us through for a couple of hours, and then the rest of the afternoon is free. We end at lunchtime. A lot of us like to head over to the lake. You can get on a cruise, have your lunch on board. I like to go spotting for this. That's Tina Turner's house in town. That is the main house there in the blue, and then that's her little boathouse there on the water, so you can go down and enjoy the lake in the summertime. The distance between the two is much greater than you think. When you see the aerial photo, you realize, oh, that's Miss Tina Turner's house. Your Swiss Pass allows you to do all sorts of museums and things this afternoon too. So if you've had some in your heart already, the Swiss National Museum is also great, or I may have a few more new ones to point out to you once you get there. Day 3, we will go, as I said, in the opposite direction. So now we're going to travel from Zurich down to St Moritz, where I just was a few days ago, but will be brand new to you. We spend a solid morning on the train, making our way to the Engadine Valley, and then we'll arrive with time to orient ourselves. You can see the picture is being taken from the frozen lake in town, and up behind it, that's basically the town site of St Moritz, all the swanky shopping and the hotels and restaurants and all the rest. And then there's ski resorts above that, and then all behind the lake as well. And villagers tend to live a little further afield, but it's really quite beautiful. A little bit of free time, walk around the lake is available. A really great way to stretch the legs, and then take you out for dinner. It's a really great one too as well. I do love the Swiss food. Day 4, we're going to hike from St Moritz doing the Muottas Muragl. This is pretty easy. We actually have access to a vehicle, or we'll take a little train hop, just one little distance over to a funicular that takes us up to the top of the Alp, and then we walk across them. The Swiss are very smart that way. It's 7 kilometers. The worst part is that we do save the uphill for the end, unfortunately, but there is cake and coffee at the halfway point to get you going. There's a cute little mountain restaurant. As I mentioned here, a lovely but humbling stop, because by the time we sit down for lunch, you're kind of feeling it. You're thinking, yeah, okay, this has been a good walk. And then you realize your servers do it every day. Sometimes with the cake that you're going to have, the whole cake, in their backpack. There was a lady who was in 74, I believe it was, who was just going to retire 2 years ago when I was last in Switzerland. And it keeps you young, I'm sure, right? The walking, mostly soft rolling hills, as I mentioned, cowbells, generally some cows, lots of flowers in the spring, some uphill at the finish just to be mean. And then once we're down, we take the chairlift down into the village. If we want, if we're up for it, we can hang a left and go up to Pontresina Glacier, where I did stumble upon that choir. Or you can head back into town, do anything you want, hit the spa, walk around the lake, that kind of thing. A little bit of free time there. You can see some of the examples of the flowers in the springtime, the purpley blue there. Basically, always guess gentian when it's that color. Unless it's a monkshood, you're probably right. The pink is creeping trefoil, I want to say, except I'm wrong. Creeping thyme. And trefoil is the yellow on the right. Also, at the bottom is a picture of the restaurant that we stop at. It really is quaint, basic but quaint. Good soups, sandwiches. You can bring a picnic lunch. It's just so epically Swiss. Really. Day 5 is our Glacier Express day to Zermatt. As you see, operates in the other direction. A nice lazy day, listening along, and fingers crossed for the lovely weather so you can get some of the photos like this of the great aqueducts that we travel over along the railway. Day 6, Zermatt and the Matterhorn. The Gornergrat Railway is what takes us up on the cog rails for the sweeping views of the Matterhorn once again, if the weather gods are kind. We really don't have an option. We have to do our hiking today. So that's why you bring the layers, right? Our descent is dictated as well by the weather. You can go slow, fast, the whole way, a little ways. It'll kind of come and go as we decide as a group, or singularly, because everything's very well marked. I wouldn't be afraid to let you try and walk places on your own on the mountain at all. And we were there one summer over the Zermatt Marathon, where they started the train station next door. So I just got distracted. My neighbor's cat walked in. You start at the town next door, and you basically run uphill to Zermatt, and then a little ways up the mountain to the finish line. But there's an ultra category, and they run to the top of the mountain. And we passed a fellow who looked fresh as a daisy. We just couldn't believe it as he was heading up there. We're hiking down because that's the way I'd like to go. Another option has us heading to the mountain town of Fori, which is the lake taking us closer to the base of the Matterhorn. That's where those little gnomes were living in the window, if you remember in the other tour. You can take the cable car up and back. You can take the cable car up and walk down. There's lots of options. And then, of course, we've still got the old part of the town and the Matterhorn Museum to squeeze in this day. So that one's a busy one as well. For perspective, a map of the lying area. This blue dot here is the Gornergrat train station in the ski village of Zermatt. Everything else is going to happen all around here on the mountains. This is the top where the Gornergrat goes up to the weather station. Basically, that's the Montreux Glacier, and the other half is Italy. So if you go up to this side to be at the foot of the Matterhorn, and around this lake, you can actually then take a lift down and have lunch in Italy and come back, because a lot of skiers do that. It's a lot less expensive. Unfortunately, those runs aren't running while we're there because we're there in the off season, but it's fun to see the signage for left Italy. Day 7, Zermatt. We are going to head to Interlaken and Grindelwald up into the mountain town. This is meant to be a travel day where you spend some time exploring Interlaken, but some friends of mine from Interlaken showed me Trummelbach Falls in the town of Lauterbrunnen. And I just found there's one person who has a connection that wants to see Lauterbrunnen anyway. And it's spectacular, nestled in the mountains. But up here on the left-hand side, there's a plateau where all of the melt from the Eiger, the Monk, and the Jungfrau, those huge 3 Alps, everything from that basin comes down. So May, June, you could be looking at 20,000 liters of water per second going by. And that water is all full of rock flour, F-L-O-U-R, which comes off of the glaciers, and that's like sandpaper. So the water is carving its way through the rock like you don't know, and there's 10 little waterfalls that all look like this. It's a crazy day. We'll do almost 10 trains in total when we're done, but it's so worth it. I'm just the kid that imagines a snorkel and an inner tube and how much fun that could be. Of course you'd die, but how much fun could it be? Day 8, we will explore Grindelwald and the Bachalpsee. This Z at the end is lake. So Lake Bachalp is where we're going to walk to. We head to the north side of the town of Grindelwald, take a gondola up to the top. There they have the cliff walk. This was new in 2017. You may have seen these in a few other places, but they've built the railings that go out from the mountain. If you do not like heights, it will make your stomach churn, but it's fabulous for photographs if the weather plays along. I'll show you just a little picture of it. There's the cliff walk there hanging up over the village. And this is the Bachalpsee. Again, a stolen photograph. The colors are just impeccable. It is awfully beautiful, I can't guarantee. It's gonna look exactly like that. The trail, this one is a little kinder. There's about 250 meters of gain, and we do that right away. So you knock it out, and then it's mostly rolling hills to the lake. Then we begin a descent. So towards the end, a fair bit of downhill that you have to do. You have to commit to it if you don't backtrack. Once you're down, there's an option to stop for lunch and catch a bus back into town, or if you're up for it, if the knees and hips are still doing good, walk a little bit more. It takes about 8 kilometers in total to do the whole loop, and 3.5 to 4 hours of walking time. Of course, there's some time at the lake, at the cliff walk, at lunch, all that. So it's a lovely and full day, Bachalpsee and the Skywalk. Day 9, we go to Kleine Scheidegg and the Jungfraujoch Adventure that I described earlier. This time we go a different direction though. We're gonna go over to the south side of town, take a chairlift up to the top, and then we take a Wanderweg. It's a very easy path to walk on, about 90 minutes walking time. There's the image of the Wanderweg, and we have on the left the Eiger, in the middle is the Monk, and the Jungfrau there in the left with the little green mountain being we'll drop in between those areas. The town of Kleine Scheidegg is down in there, and that's where we'll have lunch. They have a really nice one. And if it's a sunny day, you can sit on the patio looking at the mountains. It's absolutely beautiful, and that would leave you free for dinner in town. And that's where we catch our train. So in this situation, we'll go up onto the Jungfrau in the afternoon. The other tour, we would do it in the morning. So again, you'll be a little bit more beholden to time, but you have some free time. You could even have a nice candlelight dinner up there, or do a walk on the glacier if you wanted to, for those that are feeling strong if weather conditions are good. Lots of options on that one. Moving ahead to day 10 as we move from Grindelwald to Lucerne. Again, the beautiful train ride between those two. We go back down to Interlaken and then Interlaken to Lucerne along the 5 mountain lakes. The colors you can see on the left-hand photograph. And then on the right-hand, there's some real characters that live along the mountain pass there. And they've carved a bunch of different animals. I think that might be a Steinbrücke, a rock hopper, that's typical to the Alps area there. I'm going to say there's 7 or 8 different carvings, and you want to try and catch them as you zip by on the train. They're usually on one side and posed to give you a little bit of a hint. And if you can get them on photographs like these guys, you're doing pretty good. Whoops, I should back up and tell you what we do. We arrive in town to find some lunch, and we will have a guided tour in the afternoon, seeing the Kapelbrücke, leaving some time for the Lion Monument, my favorite. And then there is a little bit of free time where you can take yourself up on the city wall, maybe explore on the water, but you will have some more time to do that because tomorrow, day 11, we do our hike on Mount Rigi, which is right here in town, but we will come here to the main Lucerne train station and get on a little boat. It does a circuit around the lake, so we'll take it for the first few, getting off here at Rigi. The Rigibanen, or the Rigi train, is a rack railway. It's the oldest in Europe, and it goes up here to the Rigi Kulm at the top. From here, we've got 360-degree views. We walk kind of down the ridge that you can see in the light colors there. There's a nice little picnic restaurant spot we can do. There's even a place if we wanted to bring hot dogs and make a little fire, we could actually even do something like that. We eventually get down to a cable car here that takes us to the town of Vegas, picking up our boat, and that takes us back into Lucerne for the afternoon. That one's pretty chill. It's 3 kilometers downhillish mostly. So it's kind of a nice way to finish our hiking because day 12 is our day trip to Bern. About an hour's train ride. We're met on the ground. I'm hoping it's Denise O'Gorman. She's one of my favorite guides ever. And she'll take us around for our city, capital city tour, ending perfectly for lunch, where I could take you for the mushroom spätzle that would change your life. Or you could hike up to the Rose Garden. You could float in the river. The Paul Klee Museum is based there. There's all sorts of wonderful things to see and do in Bern. And because it would be our final dinner, every once in a while with flight times, if a big group is going to leave tonight, I might try and do our final dinner as an early one in Bern. Again, greater good of the group. We'll survey, see what everybody wants to do. We could do final drinks in Lucerne. But I do find on this, the last day, some people do leave the night before simply because of the timing. The trains don't begin from Lucerne until 5:35. So you could be in the airport for 7 o'clock, not earlier. 7:02, 7:03, be about the earliest you're going to get in the train into the airport. So you want a flight after 9:30 when you consider your booking. That information, again, I believe is shared with you in the pre-departure. So there shouldn't be any surprises in that, but now you know it as well. So this is the card that I've got to show you of the Swiss hiking and the Swiss rail upcoming dates. We're beginning to believe that maybe it could even be possible to squeeze one in September 2021. Oh, that would be so great. But fingers crossed, there's your ideas. These are the different prices that are available for, okay, I'm going to take the executive decision because I didn't scrub it for when I did the inaugural Adventures of Broadcast. This is the repeat of the inaugural Adventures of Broadcast, so I think it should still stand. That if you mention being here, your name is on the list, obviously, from being here. We can offer you another $100 discount when you book. Because hopefully I've convinced you would like to come to Switzerland. If you would like to come with me, I do know that I will be doing the tours in September of next year, of 2022. I can't commit to the spring tours, though, so if flowers are on your mind, or you just thought you'd like to go to Switzerland, but not with me, it's not going to kill me. You go right ahead. You can check out the other dates that are there. They're all available at adventures-abroad.com, which is also where we have all of our going forward with COVID protocol and the other questions that are generally answered by the sales department, just a little bit above my pay grade. But I'll do my best if you have some here, questions, comments, or concerns. I'm going to stop presenting so I can come back and see your smiling faces. And then take a little bit of a sip. If you have any questions, you do know how to raise your hand. I hope you'll see my hand go on my square that's me. The little white hand lights up, lights off. There's little dots at the bottom of your screen. The hand that does that will show me that you have a question, and I will come back to those. I just got to make it big enough. hate having to look squinty. There you go, so I can see. If there are questions, and I did have one actually that was sent in earlier via email. Kay wanted to know if it's possible on a day-to-day basis, especially with the hiking tour, to discuss shorter, longer, harder, easier, that kind of idea, options. And yes, it absolutely is. At first I didn't think it was, and then I kind of thought about it a little bit harder. And yeah, with the way the Swiss transport system is set up, it wouldn't be hard to challenge yourself more or give yourself an easier day. So if that's something you think about with either of them, that's available to you as well. Did anybody end up with any questions? I don't see any hands raised. If you do and you want to shout it out, you can just turn on your microphone and do that. I love it when there's no questions, because it means maybe I covered it well enough that you didn't need to know more. Or I wonder if you're awake. Either way, thank you so much for coming to our Adventures Abroadcast on the Switzerland Swiss Hiking and Rail Tour. I'm happy to hang out. You're welcome to hang up if you wanted to sit and chat and ask some questions of myself, or I might even volunteer Justin from the sales department because he's here. You're welcome. Otherwise, thanks and have a great day.
Thank you, Pam. You did a great job.
Thanks, Vicki. Have a great day and do enjoy.
We'll see each other soon. We'll see each other soon, hopefully.
That'd be grand. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
That was awesome, Pam.
Ah, good. Good. So
Was good presentation, Pam.
Excellent. Thanks, Raymond. I was happy to do it again just for the second chance to go over the material.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.
Okay.
Oh, later.